What's up, everybody? Klaus here.
Along with Smurf.
So we're gonna have a casual discussion about the new Spider-Man on the PS4 story. You know, just going in depth with it. So obviously there's gonna be spoilers. So if you haven't played the game and don't want to be spoiled, then
turn off this video right now. Play the game, but then come back and watch the video.
Please, because we're gonna go very in depth with the story, talk about what we liked, what we didn't like, and
yeah. So I guess we'll
just jump right into it.
Sure. So
the thing I
was gonna say, should we do first impressions first, kind of?
Or do you want to talk about how just the story starts?
All right, yeah, go right ahead.
Okay. Well, actually, I liked how they didn't have an origin story, just learning his powers and stuff. I liked how he was kind of already an established hero, had his.
So it starts off and it's a little bit more of a mature Peter.
Yeah,
he's 22.
Yep, he's out of school. I think he's older than that.
20. They said 22 or 23.
Okay.
And I actually, when it was rumored or when it was talked about that it was going to be an older Peter Parker, I thought they were gonna do like a 40-year-old Peter Parker. No, I thought it was going to be Peter Parker in his 30s or 40s, married to Mary Jane.
Yeah.
And it would be a story that took place in a really in Spider-Man that's seen and been through a lot of shit.
Yeah.
At 23,
well, I guess it works out though, because if they did it that way, then all his villains would already be known and stuff. This way, at his age, they could introduce villains who might and show their origin.
And what they did, what I love about what this game does, is it definitely. So there are some old school villains that are already locked away. Spider-Man has already beaten them, and they're in jail. But they play around with the lore a little bit, and there are certain bad guys that Spider-Man hasn't fought with, and we get to learn their origins.
Yep. So it starts off with a villain that everybody should be familiar with, the Kingpin. And that's how they kind of start the game. The Kingpin's basically causing havoc in the city, and Spider-Man's working with the police to try to shut him down, and he breaks into his tower. And
could we talk about Spider-Man is undercover police work? Because I love the banter between him and Yuri.
Yeah.
Spider Cop.
Spider Cop.
Yeah. I thought every bit of dialogue. What I loved about Peter in this game was he was so funny.
He was good. Yeah.
I thought he was just such a great Peter Parker with his quips and his. I just thought he was funny.
Yep, Spider Cop running the city.
So
yeah, basically starts off with him fighting the Kingpin. I enjoyed the boss fight. That's I think one of the strongest points of the game is all the boss fights.
Yeah, I like all the boss fights. I mean, you get late towards the third act of the game, which we'll get to. It's when the boss fights I think are a little bit more prominent. They're using more villains. In the beginning, they're
kind of far between, but you kind of get get used to it in the very beginning of the game. Let's get used to it. You first fight through the tower, fighting some standard Fisk thugs, and then finally you fight Fisk and you lock that boy up.
Lock Kingpin up, all while in your classic Spidey suit.
Yep. Which gets damaged.
Yep. And essentially, Peter in this version is working for Dr. Otto Octavius.
Yeah, which is what you see after the whole Fisk opening. Locked away. He goes to Octavius' laboratory and.
So, Norman Osborn is the mayor of New York City, and you find out that Otto and Norman actually worked together in the past.
Yeah. And
Otto finds out that Peter Parker is working on Spider-Man suits.
Yeah, you see he walks in on him working on the suit.
So then that's that white, the PS4 costume design.
Yeah.
That's Otto made that. He was like, I have some ideas for you.
He thinks he's working with Spider-Man. But I'm sorry to be suspicious. I think maybe right then and there he knew Peter was Spider-Man, and he was just saying that. I think he knew from right then and on.
Well, with what you find out later, that could be very well be.
I mean, it's not 100% sure, but I feel like he did at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's a smart guy. I don't think the first thing that would come to his mind is, oh, you work on his suits. Like, wouldn't your first thought, if you saw somebody with a Spider-Man suit, be like, hey, you're probably Spider-Man.
I was also like, you know how many times it must have happened to, like, Peter, like, withholding a costume or doing something, and somehow Otto just kind of came up from behind him? Like, don't you think his spider sense would have come up or something?
Yeah, but, yeah.
You know what I mean?
I don't know. It's a dangerous and stressful situation.
Just kind of like, all of a sudden, Otto just sees the suit, but...
Yeah. But that's when you kind of learn about those, like, little mini-games, too, like, that you will play throughout the game. In the laboratory, you'll do, like, the circuit board one, then you'll do, like, the DNA kind of matching up and stuff.
Yeah, these games, this game has, like, little puzzles and...
Yeah. And it kind of gives you an introduction to those, which you could do later on at your own leisure, or throughout other side missions, and even part of the stories will have more of those, too.
I liked all the puzzles.
I thought they were fun.
They were fun, yeah. I especially liked the ones with the lines, and you had to match up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought both were pretty good. Yes, but even though the Kingpin was locked up, it's not without its consequences, because the Kingpin might be locked up, but that gives the whole criminal underworld the chance to push out and not be under the Kingpin's reign. And
like Fisk said, what did he say? He said
it was a good quote too.
Just that he was like, I run the city, like he's like,
yeah.
Come to me, Spider-Man, in a week or something.
Yeah, you'll be begging to have me released or something.
Yeah, you'll be begging me to be back.
Because basically now that Fisk is behind bars, other criminals, are more willing to take chances and stuff, since they don't have to face the wrath of Fisk and Spider-Man.
And all of Fisk's goons.
Yeah. So, yep. So that was that. And then...
So I guess we could talk about, just to further it along, like Aunt May's.
Yeah, that's what I was going to go next, because the next scene after that was actually they go to her Aunt May's job at Feast, which is the homeless shelter, to celebrate her anniversary of working there or something.
Yeah, it was like 5 years there or something. That's
one of the positives I want to mention is the character Aunt May in this game. I thought she was done really well. I liked the age they chose for her. She wasn't. I thought she was too young in Homecoming, the movie. I kind of like the age they chose for her. Kind of like she wasn't too old, but she wasn't like too,
I'm a classic. I like old as shit.
I do too. But I don't think old as shit Aunt May could work at Feast like she did in this one.
Right. Someone who's very active and someone that's very. Yeah,
I thought it was a good age that you didn't really see too much in for Aunt May, like in any of the variant stories.
I liked Aunt May a lot in this. Yeah. I liked a lot of their takes on the characters.
There's one character who I hated, who we'll get to later. Well, probably sooner than later, but Aunt May, I thought, like, 2 thumbs up. She was really good in this game throughout.
Foreshadowing my tears.
Hey, come. Still got a ways to go.
Well, they've played it, if they're watching.
That's true.
You know what I'm talking about.
But yeah, we learn Aunt May is actually a working lady now. She's working at Feast, the homeless shelter.
And now
you meet her boss.
The boss,
Lee.
Lee.
Yeah.
Who, we'll just say it, he's Mr. Negative. Yeah. If you don't know by watching the trailers or by playing the game.
Yeah, and from the comics, you probably already, if you read the comics, know going in that Lee's Mr. Negative. Or he's a newer villain. He was one of the Dan Slott characters. Sloot characters. Slot. Yeah, he's a newer villain. Not one of the classics, so kind of nice that they took some from classics and newer ones and stuff.
I like that he played a little bit of a bigger role. Gives everybody knows the classic Spidey villains for the most part, so it's kind of cool. They take a one that's not as popular and really give them centerfold to be awesome and cool. And I really love the progression until we get to a part, and I think his story kind of...
See, I wasn't too crazy about his story, so maybe we're the same boat, because at some point I was like, okay, I don't really get like...
Well, they drag it on for a little too long.
Yeah, as him being like the main guy.
After you put all of Fisk's men away and you beat the Kingpin, a lot of the game then centers around this... thing with Lee, who's... what do we know then? Like when he's starting to when his faction is called the Demons.
Well, after you visit Mayat Feast soon after that is when you go to the museum. To meet MJ and stuff.
You play as Mary Jane.
Yeah, and that's when you learn about the mask. You learn about the demons and Lee trying to steal Fist's information and stuff. And
but we don't know. Essentially, we just don't know what their motives are.
Yeah,
and that's kind of what the mystery is. And so, what are they trying to do?
Yep.
What's their end game?
Yeah, but they basically had the demons as the role of the basic thugs you just beat around throughout the game and mash up and
after William Fisk's men.
Yeah.
There's kind of four group factions.
Yeah, we got prisoners, you got demons, you got Fisk guys, you got
and then Sable.
Yeah, so you do have 4 factions.
Sable were my least favorite to fight.
They were kind of pain in the asses of the 4. But let's talk about the whole MJ, playing as MJ, because this is the part of the game that really kind of dragged it down for me, was the parts where you play as MJ or Miles and these stealthy kind of just trying to sneak up and just go from beginning to end without getting caught.
Tacked on stealth missions, essentially.
Yeah, if they were done every once in a while, it wouldn't be that big of a deal, but they were actually very frequent in the game, and it, in my opinion, really slowed it down. In Act 2 alone, there was 4 of these stealth little modes, and
I really liked them, actually. I thought they were a good break. I loved what they did with Mary Jane's character.
See, that's the character who I hate in this game.
I love that they make her this teammate, a partner, as they kept saying in the game. I love that, because in the movies, in the comics, she's always either a model or she's an actress trying to whatever. Here, I think she fits perfect within that the Daily Bugle reporter. It just feels so natural, and it's believable that Peter would be attracted to this girl who's kind of in the same mindset. I don't know. I loved it.
Okay, so this is where we're going to differ a little bit, because I hate Mary Jane in this game so much. I hate her character.
Why, dude? It's awesome.
I'll tell you,
and their relationship as the story. It's so... Oh, man.
Okay, so I think this game tries so hard to make her the anti-damsel in distress like she usually is, that they go way too overboard to the point where she is whiny, just annoying character.
No. I thought it was spot on.
She's like, oh, Peter, you never let me do anything. You're too protective, and just leave me alone. I gotta do my own thing sometimes.
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking, Mary Jane, you're literally walking around a bunch of bad guys with guns. Of course I'm going to be, protective of you. You don't have superpowers like I do. And she's all offended that he's trying to be protective of her when she's walking around literally guys with superpowers and guns and grenades and stuff.
I don't know. I think if I were Mary Jane, which suspension of belief, right? Because I'm not a girl, I don't have red hair. But if I were Mary Jane, I would feel the same way. I would be if my Peter Parker was always saving me, telling me I can't do this, I can't do that, stay put, whatever it was, because we didn't we didn't see when they broke up.
No,
we saw them get back together. And
they were already broken up when this game started.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know. I thought it was really.
I thought she came off very cold, overly just try. I don't. I love my Mary Jane to be warm, supportive, and she just seemed like she went out of her way to just try to throw in Peter's face that trying to do her own thing.
I like this Mary Jane.
Oh, I don't need your help, Peter. Oh, until I'm falling off a building, then come save me, Spider-Man.
Well, but that was a part in the game where they were really working as a team.
Yeah.
I
see, that part I don't mind when they're being teams. It was a part where she's how they got in a couple of arguments throughout the game.
Yeah, I know what part you're talking about.
Where she's basically trying to tell him, and he's literally. I could see if maybe he was being too protective of her about a normal everyday life situation we go through, but these are people with guns and powers and stuff. So I can see why Spider-Man Peter Parker is a little bit more protective about somebody he cares about getting into that kind of situation.
When the when the demons and Lee were taking hostages in the Oscorp building.
Yep.
And at some point it turns into one of those like Mary Jane missions, but Spider-Man is with you.
And she calls. That was
you're telling Spider-Man grab these guys, and
that was like the one I actually didn't mind.
I liked
that one.
I liked that all the sequences with Mary Jane and Miles were different from each other that way as well. Because I know the first Miles mission where he's where you have like a phone to hack shit with, and he's hacking Sable robots. That one was kind of whatever, but then the one where you're trying to escape from Rhino, that one was awesome, dude. Like, I was like, oh shit! Like,
we'll get to that later, I guess. Because I didn't.
If you have more stuff to say about it, sure, but...
Yeah. I mean, that one's not... We're not probably going into that depth, but... I don't know, I thought... Okay, for that one specifically, Rhino basically starts chasing Miles because he hears, like, a toolbox fall. For, like... So he's chasing Miles for, like, 20 minutes because one toolbox falls. I mean, it's like, Rhino, I'm sure your fat ass knocks about shit over all the time, so... I'm sure you're used to stuff falling around you. It's not that... Warrant you looking for 20 minutes for somebody that you don't know is there or not.
Rhino has a thirst for blood.
I guess so.
For Miles' blood.
I guess so. Okay, let's go on to the story. So yeah, you so you learn about Mayor. You learn that Mayor Norman Osborn is shutting down Otto's lab, basically. Right.
So obviously, Otto, he's cutting like funding.
Funding, yeah.
So Peter potentially is going to lose his job.
Yeah.
And Otto's going out of business. His life work.
His life work is
looks
under.
Like they've been working on like arms.
Oh yeah, they're working on like prosthetic arms for like people who have lost them in like like war, like whatever situation.
Which is cool. It reminded me of a lot of like what Connors would do with like the lizard.
Yeah.
That was his whole deal too, trying to like
get that,
regenerate like body limbs and things like that.
Yeah, this is when you really start seeing Otto's disdain for Norman and stuff, and their whole history is kind of shed a little bit more light onto. And so basically Otto's lab is getting closed down. Peter's gonna be out of a job, and
because it's kind of where we are in the story at some point, but you do have to. I just want to talk about that Halloween.
We're not even close to Halloween.
We're not?
No, we're still in that's Act 2. We're in Act 1.
All right, well...
Okay, well, let's go on into Shocker then, because you see Shocker in Act 1.
Sure, I mean, yeah, so after...
Shocker, you get two things with him. One, you chase him throughout the city, and the next one, you have, like, an actual, like, fight with him.
Mm-hmm.
So, Shocker is, a well-established Spider-Man character, and he's the one character, I think, of all the villains we see throughout this game, who I didn't really like their, costume per se.
Oh, I liked it. I thought it was.
I think it was terrible. Out of all the villains that you see throughout the game, it's my least favorite take.
I think Shocker has one of the more sillier costumes in the comics anyway.
As is, yeah.
So I
mean, some of them have some.
But I feel like they made it more of like a full kind of like Iron Man type kind of suit. I thought it looked cool. I thought it looked. Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, but...
I like it better than what they do in the movies. Like, the last movie was nothing. It was just they had the blasters and there was no costume.
Yeah. Yeah, so, that's true. It could be worse, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically you get another boss fight with Shocker. So in Act 1 you get two boss fights with Kingpin and Shocker. And like I said, I think one of my favorite things in story mode is the boss fights. And so the Shocker was also a good boss fight, so very nice.
Yeah, no, I like all that stuff. So you get those two bosses, in Act 1?
Yeah.
So, and then in Act 2, which we'll go into more, it's just a couple fights with Lee.
It's like one fight with Lee, basically.
Then the one fight,
again, Act 3, but
before it was...
Yeah.
There was a first one where it's like everything is negative and you're in like the negative like space. Yeah. That's semi. So what I would and then after the jailbreak where I'm just because I wanted to make a point.
Okay.
But we'll get there when a lot of the classic Spider-Man villains escape prison.
Yep.
And then those like in Act 3 you fight a lot of you have a lot of boss fights.
Yeah.
You have multiple boss fights. They should, like, in the next Spider-Man game, or, what would be interesting, as you're swinging around the city,
if boss fights just
make it, because if you think about like
Yeah.
if a game's like 20 hours, 30 hours, if you did a random encounter boss fight every 30
I was hoping
minutes,
they would do that.
like
I thought like the Rhino would have been perfect. Well, but we learned that he's part of the main story, so obviously not the Rhino, but a character like the Rhino.
But there's so many villains out of the rogue gallery to choose from.
Yeah.
You could fill up
just like
you could
open
have,
world boss fight.
But exactly,
you have to get to it.
You could have an open story going on at the same time, but then every half hour you get a thing on the police radar scanner. They start talking about a villain that you know. And you have to go fight him that way. That would be so cool.
They kind of did with Tombstone, not really, kind of in a side story, but he was like really the only villain outside of the main story that you fight.
Well, him and Ticketmaster.
And Taskmaster, yeah.
Or not Ticketmaster, Taskmaster.
Yeah.
So no, but right, that would be awesome if they did it more like Tombstone that way, and had all these like side missions, or have it happen live in the open world setting.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think that would be so cool.
Okay, well, let's talk about the end of Act 1, where basically Norman's having a political like press conference or something, and the demons like basically terrorize by setting off bombs and stuff, which eventually leads to the death of Miles' dad.
Right.
So
nice dramatic moment there.
Yeah, you close Act 1 like with a...
And they had like Peter Parker like kind of got blown out of the way too.
He gets hurts there pretty badly, and they have the funeral for the dad, and that's when Peter talks to Miles, I think, for the first time. And
that's when he meets Miles and gets in the idea that maybe Miles needs Feast in his life just to get him, like... Yeah. So that's kind of how they pull Miles...
Into it.
His father... Well, there's a mission earlier...
Yeah, you play a mission with his father.
Yeah, as Spider-Man, you
father working together.
Exactly. A little co-op mission there.
Yeah. So, Spider-Man has some attachment to Miles before even meeting him because of that.
Mm.
So you want to talk about Miles real quick?
Yeah, we can talk about Miles.
So, I'm not a fan of the comics that feature Miles, but I thought he was a good character in the video game. I thought he played his role good and stuff. So I didn't really have any issues complaining. Like, the only issue I have is the whole stealth.
You don't like Miles, though, in general?
I don't like it, the comics where he's in. In the video game, I thought his character was good. I just don't like the story of the comics, which is a different issue, but... Like, if you left the comics aside, and just... If I... didn't read any of the comics and like saw him for the video game for the first time, I enjoyed his character. Because
I was going to say, like, one thing I like disliked about Miles in this is the way he becomes Spider-Man.
Yeah, well, I'm going to get that because there's something I'm going to say that I'm not looking forward to in the sequel.
What, is playing a lot of Miles?
Because I don't want to be... He's going to be more of probably a sidekick than he already is in this game, and I just, not really looking forward to that.
Well, we could talk about like what we hope for a sequel after.
Yeah,
because I do want to talk
in
about
a separate video.
Yeah, or whatever.
That'd probably be better for another video. But yeah, so Miles is part of the crew and he joins Feast. So he meets Aunt May. He meets all the shindig. And yeah, so in the beginning of Act 2, is when we were first introduced to Tombstone. You don't fight him until like a side mission later on, but he's part of the story in the beginning of Act 2. Basically, like MJ is another sneak mission around his little workshop there. Yeah, because Tombstone's working for Lee and the Demons at that point. So MJ's trying to, find some information or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that was all good stuff.
Yeah. So, yeah, let's go to the Halloween party, I guess.
Yeah, let's get... All that stuff's not really, like, integral, really.
No. It doesn't really
it's just kind of padding,
So Halloween story is, part is pretty cool. You see some of the original costumes of people dressed up in the Halloween.
Yeah, so this part of the game is we're looking... we need to save somebody that...
We're trying to save a professor. Yeah. We don't know what one. He's, like, in 3... He's possibly in a Mysterio Halloween costume, or in like a lizard Halloween costume, or a Vulture Halloween costume.
So it's cool. You show up to this party as Spider-Man, and there's people dressed as Spider-Man, and a bunch of villains, and you're just walking around this Halloween party. And there's like a like cool moments happen where like this guy dressed up in a rhino costume like grabs you.
That was
like,
pretty funny.
I'm your villain. We have to fight.
That guy was such a dick.
And then you have to bring him down.
Yeah.
That was. I like that they used the classic. It was great because we got all the classic costumes in that scene.
But at the Halloween parties, when you first see Lee actually as Mr. Negative, I think in his actual like form
where he goes negative. Yeah.
So, yeah, you have boss battle with Mr. Negative, and do you have there? Yeah, I think after the Halloween parties when you have the boss fight with Mr. Negative, and is basically when you capture him.
Well,
and send him to Rutgers.
Well,
the raft.
You do that when during the Oscorp building part.
What's that?
It's like when you're fighting them in the train.
Yeah, I'm talking about like for the second act though, when you lock him up for the first time before Otto breaks him out. Is that for the Halloween party when you're chasing him down?
Okay, sure. I don't know. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah. Okay. So basically you learn more about the Devil's Breath, which is basically that's what Lee was after and stuff, trying to steal, and like it was the Devil's Breath was supposed to be like a cure for like various diseases, but I don't think it was tuned enough, so it was a biochemical like bio weapon.
We can talk about why the Devil Breath existed though, right?
Yeah, let's go into that.
All right. So so he's after the Devil Breath and he wants to use it. Lee wants to use it essentially to bring Oscorp down.
Yeah.
He wants to. His end goal is to destroy Norman, and like ruin his life essentially, and he'll kill innocent people to do that. And the Devil's Breath is like a plague.
Yeah.
Where it just.
Actually, it plays a huge role throughout the rest of the story, too.
Yeah, it does. And they steal it from the scientist.
Yeah, I think the one who was in charge of, like, creating it or whatever, or watching
who
it.
was working for Osborn.
Yeah. Yeah, because this is Devil's Breath was created by
Norman Osborn.
Yeah.
To do the complete opposite, it was supposed to, like you said, cure diseases and do all these things.
Yeah. But basically it's not fine-tuned yet, and at the moment it's like basically a bioweapon that could be destroy, like...
So that's cool. Totally invested in this.
Yep. So, at the end of Act 2 is when I started really getting into the story. Like I told you in private, well, not in private, but I wasn't that crazy about a lot of the first two acts up until the ending of Act 2. The Act 1 was okay, but most of Act 2 until the end I wasn't really that into. It was the prison escape that like really kind of sold me in on the story. So you want to get into that maybe?
Yeah. So,
I think it's Electro who kind of starts the whole prison like riot. So basically, Electro is setting common prisoners in Rutgers, which isn't like the holding like the actual villains, but like the more pedestrian kind of common prisoners. So you have basically a prison riot and prisoners escaping, and Spider-Man's called by Yuri to try to get things under control. So he goes there, and Electro's attacking helicopters and whatnot, and Spider-Man has to fight the prisoners and basically chase Electro and try to stop him.
Well, it's made apparent that it's not just Electro. It's
the Vulture is the first one to join the party. So you're chasing Electro, and that's when the Vulture swoops in for the first time. So you have two villains introduced, pretty close off.
So throughout, like, it was one thing that the game did very weird is like during random, like super random parts throughout the game, it just kept cutting to this bottom left corner of faces of old villains, of who I guess was in jail. But it was weird that it kept like, did you notice that?
Yeah.
It would just randomly like pan to them. It was to remind us that these villains are here, and you guys are gonna have to fight us at some point. I just thought it was weird that it kept doing it.
So basically, yeah, you learn when you're chasing Electro, you see the Vulture. You eventually see Scorpion and Rhino, and then you see that Mr. Negative is also free again. And then who's masterminding them all?
Doc Ock.
Yep.
So this was a great part of the game. This is where it's kind of like your first twist, I guess, if you didn't already know that.
Yeah.
That Lee was Mr. Negative, but you knew they were gonna lead up to Doc Ock.
They throughout the game.
Throughout the game, as you're working for Doc Ock, you find out again that his past with Osborn, and you also find out that he has
his body's failing.
His body is failing him, some kind of like neural disease,
and that's why he was working on the arms and.
Right. So you could tell it. So this neural disease that he has also messes with his head, so it makes him not himself, and it makes him go a little loony.
Yeah. And
so you find out that he promised all these villains, all of Rhino, Scorpion, all the ones that we just forementioned. He promised them things.
In return to them teaming up with him to take down Osborn.
To take down Norman Osborn.
Yeah. Basically everybody hates Norman Osborn. Osborn's game. You got Mr. Negative. You got Doc Ock.
Yeah, that part was incredible. Doc Ock just comes up. We've mentioned just how beautiful the cutscenes were. They were spot on. Yeah. I mean,
So yeah, they all basically kick Spider-Man's ass. Dr. Ock shows up and does the finishing job, throwing him off the top of the prison. And yeah, so you basically reveal to they don't ever say in the game, but this is basically the new Sinister Six with Doc Ock leading them.
I think that's what the trophy is that you get. It's the Six Assemble or something.
Yeah,
or something like that.
Kind of reference it, but never said in the game. But yep. So I love that part. That you knew Dr. Octavius was gonna be the main villain, but
I actually didn't see that coming, honestly.
Oh, really? They were building it up.
I knew they were building it up, but I didn't know if he was Doc Ock was gonna come at the end, or if I didn't know if they were gonna save him for a sequel.
I was thankful that I thought maybe they would wait till the final boss, but I'm happy they brought him the way they did, because I think towards the middle, having Mr. Negative as the main villain was becoming a little repetitive, and you need more of a staple character like Doc Ock to come in.
The reason it sucked is because we were going through I really liked Doc Ock, all of his cutscenes and how you interacted with him earlier on. You believe this guy cared about his work, and he really loved Peter and everything.
That was definitely my favorite.
And he was kind of a father figure for Peter.
And they didn't even say that in the game, but that was actually probably my favorite thing throughout the whole game was the relationship between Peter and Otto and stuff, and Spider-Man fighting Doc Ock.
It was fantastic at movie quality.
Yeah, we'll get more towards the end with that later on, but that was definitely probably my favorite thing throughout the story was seeing them two interact and cutscenes with them and the story between them.
So after the prison riot,
is Act 3, and that's when Doc Ock attacks Norman's rally and releases the Devil's Breath.
Yes.
So the Devil's Breath that we were talking about earlier that Mr. Negative was after, it's now in Otto's possession, and he releases it onto a group of people, onto the city, basically, injecting the whole city with a biochemical that is causing them to basically die.
So a lot of people get sick.
Yeah, so everybody's, from that point on, everybody's wearing masks and they're sick.
And because all these prisoners are now loose, the entire city is basically just
it changes the whole
crazy.
Not even the story, it changes the open world for you.
Yeah.
And actually I might start a new game and save it right in the middle of at that point, because at that point on when you're just webbing through the city, you're getting attacked from every corner, you're getting prisoners after, you're getting
it's actually kind of annoying. If you just want to swing around, all of a sudden you got a laser beam on you and they try And not only that, but we also you also as sort of like a side thing. It's not really like integral to like the plot really, but they introduced Sable.
I love Sable too.
Yeah,
yeah. She's, I'm not sure when that happened. If that
because it's not really Sable basically Norman Osborn hires her as a personal bodyguard, but with her she brings her like whole Sable unit, and they become another faction for like throughout the open world that you kind of have to fight.
They're supposed to be like helping the city. They're supposed to be the good guys,
but they're also like
they also want to kill Spider-Man.
Yeah, they also don't like Spider-Man.
They hate Spider-Man.
But they like lock up like random people in cages too, like just because
they're kind of dicks.
They're all a bunch of bullies, really. You know.
But one thing I would have liked is maybe for more like variant gameplay, instead of having some of the MJ Miles stealth missions, maybe have more something with controlling Sable or something, because she actually has like different powers, like cool combat stuff. So I don't know, that might have been something good to think about as like a playable Sable missions or something.
Or maybe I'm gonna defend MJ here. Maybe keep some of the MJ stuff, but instead of like more stealth missions with Miles, you could have Sable, and maybe you're doing some gun action. Yeah. Dual wielding gun stuff.
Yeah.
Everybody likes gun stuff.
But also something worth noting is after the release of The Devil's Breath, is you see Aunt May start coughing up blood.
I don't want to think about that.
Yeah, which kind of foreshadows her being... She's sick. She's sick, man.
She's sick. And when... I'm going to jump ahead, because I'm going to... Spider-Man has to choose when he gets the anti-serum. Should we go into this now?
Let's wait maybe a little bit.
She has to choose.
She has to choose. It's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay.
I thought they were going to have to make you make the decision.
Yeah, no.
I would have been like, what? But then it would... if they're planning a sequel, that would have been hard.
No, it wouldn't make sense, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially, like, you don't get any choices throughout the game. And randomly, like, let this huge decision...
They're like, do you kill Aunt May?
Yeah. It's like, fuck you guys. Don't make me choose. Alright, let's see if there's any other, Okay, so yeah, basically Norman Osborn blames Spider-Man for the chemical attacks for no reason. Which leads to Sable attacking Spider-Man, which kind of said before. So that's kind of how the whole Sable starts attacking you, is because Norman blames the attack on Spider-Man. Even though MJ reports on news saying there's no evidence, and Norman's just deflecting blame because it was developed in Oscorp lab. So basically, Norman was trying to save face and blame Spider-Man for...
Right, so you find out the reason that he even created the Devil's Breath is because Harry, who was made to believe had went to Europe or something, Harry Osborn is like out of town. They keep seeing it throughout the game. When in reality... Harry is sick. He has the same disease that his mother had, and who died from. And I guess it's genetic, and it got passed down to Harry. And now Harry is in a tube.
Yeah. Like
in Oscorp, or in some like Oscorp facility.
No, it's right in his penthouse. It's in that secret room.
Oh yeah. So Norman created the Devil's Breath essentially to save his son.
Yeah.
Which I think could potentially lead to Green Goblin later on.
Well, that's going to be the sequel to the second game, definitely. But that's another time. Okay. So you have some like more options. You have like two options. You have like Electro causing havoc with Transformers. You gotta try to stop him, and
okay. So next, basically, all the villains are loose, and they pair up a couple villains at a time, and then you gotta beat everybody before you fight Doc Ock.
Yeah.
So the first ones they have you fight, or I think you can choose who you fight first.
Yeah, but I fought Vulture and Electro first.
Yeah, I did. I think I did too.
Yeah.
So you gotta fight them together.
No, that was a lot of fun. There's two options, but it's not part of the main fight. It was like a little thing before. You always fight them.
Just on the street or whatever.
But yeah, so you fight Vulture and Electro at the same time, which I thought was a really fun fight.
That was really fun.
All the boss fights are really fun, so I'm probably gonna sound repetitive, but like I said, the boss fights were my favorite thing in the game.
I thought Electro looked awesome.
He did, yeah.
I like that they gave him... I mean, he would have been cooler with the star.
Yeah.
But
they had that in some of the comics, too.
They gave it to him... his scars, his burns, like, are in the same shape.
Yeah.
So, he looked cool. Vulture looked cool.
And they kind of hint... Well, they don't hint. They say in the game that, like, Vulture and Spider-Man, like, had, like, the most, like, interaction between the two, I think. Kind of, like, the most fights throughout their history in the game. So it's kind of cool. They established kind of a universe already where Spider-Man fought these guys in the past. They know each other well. And
yeah, they were already locked up.
Yep.
The banter between Spider-Man and the villains, they're so good. So many great one-liners.
Also, note real quick, before the fight, is the scene like where MJ and Miles save Spider-Man from like the fire. Like when Spider-Man's like saving people from a burning building, but then Spider-Man himself is like falling to his death, and basically like Miles and MJ like save him, like it catches like Web and like pull him to safety. Mm-hmm. So you get more interaction with the team of people that you have working.
Yeah, again, like Mary Jane like really forms this partnership with Spider-Man, and I really like it. And then they somehow get Miles a little bit more involved too. Miles is like. Peter Parker is kind of like teaching him out, or no, as Spider-Man, you're teaching Miles how to fight, and then Miles freaks out that he just met Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And then because Miles is always at Feast, he has a lot of interactions now with Mary Jane, and kind of like wiggles his way into like the team up.
Yeah. Kind of
like helps out a little bit. At one point, he's like, oh, do I get a cell phone number or something? And Spider-Man gives him, like, his phone number.
Well, he says, get it from MJ.
Or get it from MJ, yeah.
Yeah.
Are you guys, like, an item? And it's, like, Spider-Man and MJ. That was funny. I like that line.
Yep, so you have, you see the Rhino again. I think that's when he's have that stealth mission with Miles. But after that, Spider-Man goes and fights the Rhino, and Scorpion interferes in their fight. So then you're basically having a fight against Rhino and the Scorpion at the same time. Mm-hmm. So you have the Rhino charging at you while you're using your web to pull stuff down to stun him and attack. Then you have the Scorpion shooting random poison things at you throughout the fight, and another really fun boss fight.
Mm-hmm. And I thought...
And Act 3 is full of that. Act 3 was so fun with all the boss fights.
I thought besides Doc Ock, Scorpion had the best costume. He looked spot on. Like
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Loved the Scorpion's costume in this.
Yeah, I think all the classic villains in the new Sinister Six, the Rhino, Electro, Scorpion, and Doc Ock, they all all the costumes were amazing. Like I said, my least favorite was Shocker way back in Act 1, but the Vulture looked good too.
Yeah.
And I like the way Doc Ock looked in the game too, like his kind of like his whole.
You know what? Hollywood would never cast someone that looked like that to play Doc Ock. Yeah. But it's perfect. He looks so much like Doc Ock.
Yeah.
Like that was Doc Ock. He was so good.
Yeah.
Oh.
So you have 4 of the villains down. You have Vulture and Electro defeated. You have Rhino and Scorpion defeated now. So you have 4 of the 6 down.
Right, so next you fight Mr. Negative.
Yup, he's the next person before the final one. But before this, I just want to mention one thing real quick. Is the part where MJ goes to Norman's penthouse to look for she has to sneak into the house, go through Harry's room, and
that was such
try to
a good
break
mission.
Then she has to go into his secret room behind the painting with a key code and stuff. So basically, Sable agents are there, and Sable herself. And the part that really annoyed me was while MJ's in the secret lab, she knocks something over, causing Sable to go into the room to check on it. So there's a table right there where Mary Jane's hiding in the open, and Sable just luckily stops right before it, so she doesn't see MJ. So Sable's like, okay, there's been a breach. Everybody look around the penthouse for her. So all the Sable agents are looking around the penthouse. Sable leaves the laboratory where she heard the initial the crash, so they're looking everywhere around the penthouse for somebody besides one place where they heard a noise come from, which kind of just.
She probably thought that she had already left the room.
She literally just heard that second, and she even bothered to take one walk around the room. It's a little thing, but that part kind of annoyed me.
Well, in that scene, it's worth noting that you find a cage with spiders in it, and Norman was testing spiders to try to replicate Spider-Man's abilities.
Yeah.
And that's what she knocks over.
And it goes on her.
A spider crawls on MJ.
It was at that point I knew that spider would eventually bit Miles. Because if you guys don't know, Miles eventually becomes Spider-Man in the comic book. So if you're familiar with the comics, you kind of know what is going to happen.
So it's not like the same exact. I
know it's not the story, but
it was a spider in the comics. It was a spider that
from Norman
Osborn had created.
So you, from that point, you know where they're going. You know that spider is going to eventually bite Miles and whatnot, and yeah.
It's also the scene where you find out, or that's also the part where you find out about Harry.
Yeah, that he's when he's become sick and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they still think he's in Europe, which you find out later he's not. But they didn't even know he was sick up until that point. Yeah, so.
So fighting Mr. Negative.
Yeah. Yeah, so sorry. So yeah, how does that start? So Mr. Negative, does he have this? Yeah, they're looking for that vial at the Oscorp thing where MJ's at to put the serum into or something. You know, that little container for it. So basically the demons and everybody there, and they hold MJ and other civilians captive. And that's where Spider-Man has to break into, and he eventually fights Mr. Negative again. Mm. And the boss fight was a lot different from the previous ones. I thought it was pretty cool, where you have the big kind of representation of the demon kind of portraying itself, and
yeah, it was cool. I like that boss fight a lot.
Yep. So all right, is it time for the main thing? Oh my gosh. Sorry.
That better be Spider-Man related.
Oh, it is. Okay. So we want to talk about the final fight?
Yeah. So, right after you beat Mr. Negative, you basically get almost mortally wounded.
Yeah, Doc Ock shows
by
up.
Doc Ock,
and he messes Spider-Man up.
He swipes the anti, basically the what do you call it?
The cure to Devil's Breath, the stuff that countered the Devil's Breath.
Yeah, the cure.
The anti serum or whatever.
Anti-serum. He so he swipes that. Basically, almost mortally wounds.
He's basically left for
dead. Yeah,
and they have to bring him. Spider-Man, of course, is one of the hospital, so they bring him to Feast, and they have the doctor who's actually working on the anti-serum look at Spider-Man.
Sure. Meanwhile, Doc Ock takes Norman Osborn hostage.
Yep.
So over at Feast...
Yep, so he has the serum and Norman.
Everybody's patching up Spider-Man.
Yep.
Who's got all sorts of bones broken and whatever.
Yep.
Spider-Man goes to the lab, the Doc Ock lab, and creates a brand new suit.
Yeah.
To help him fight Doc Ock.
Yep. Yep.
And the suit's badass. It's awesome.
So he had to stop thinking like Spider-Man, start thinking more like Peter, and started thinking new different ways to be.
Yeah, that was MJ line. That was so good. MJ's like, maybe Spider-Man can't beat Doc Ock. Maybe Peter can, though. Gotta use your brain, Peter.
But, I mean, I guess technically at the end of the day it was Spider-Man.
I guess at the end of the day it was. But
the suit did help.
So, the final scene. The final fight with Doc Ock.
The fight itself was, it wasn't that challenging or anything. It was a fun fight, nonetheless. But the scene, You want to talk about it?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like you said earlier. It was like movie quality. It was
like one of the. I think it was like one of my favorite Spider-Man moments, like of all time. Like it tops like most of the movies. Like
it was a good moment. Yeah,
it was so good with Doc Ock. After you basically defeat him, Doc Ock's like begging for his life.
Yeah, he's trying to guilt. He first of all he tells him that he knows it's really Peter behind the mask.
Mm-hmm.
He knows, and
which Spider-Man does not.
It kind of pisses him off. He's like, you knew it was me, but you're still doing this. He told him basically he was a father figure to him, and
well, Doc Ock had already previously tried killing him.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, or maybe he intentionally didn't kill him to leave him.
Well, the first time unintentionally when he throws him off, you know.
Yeah, that was.
He said, "Just get out of our way."
Maybe even the second time, maybe he didn't. Maybe he held back a little bit. You don't know. Hey, maybe Spider-Man was the asshole in this.
I don't know.
No, I'm just joking. But yeah. So you have a huge emotional scene with Doc Ock and Spider-Man, which, like really I said, I think it made the whole story like. It brought like the main sequence with the Spider-Man and his foes like all together.
And he's leaving Doc Ock with nothing but his brain and a useless body.
Yep.
Because now
he's sending him to prison.
He ripped the chip off and all that.
Yeah.
So, great moment. Spider-Man gets the anti-serum, or gets the cure for the Devil's Breath, and goes back to Feast, or the hospital, or wherever Aunt May is, who's dying.
Yeah, because like as we hinted, we knew she was sick from previous things, and she's on her deathbed, and
this could save her if he like injected it into the IV.
Yeah, because they only have one. They don't have like a whole they only have the original like creation of the anti-serum. They don't have it's not mass produced yet. It's only the original thing.
So Peter Parker has to choose whether or not to inject all of this to Aunt May to save her life now,
or to use it to make more for everybody.
Right, but which would take time, which Aunt May doesn't have.
Yeah, because the doctor basically said like she has like a day. Well, actually, it was like 5 minutes after that one. But yeah. So did you cry, bro?
Yeah, I cried.
I knew you cried.
I didn't cry, but I teared up.
Yeah, when I was watching, I was like, yeah, the Smurf is definitely having a tear over this one.
I cry a lot. I get emotional.
Movies, video games.
Now, before I start tearing up right now, did we say that he's about to inject it.
I'm
gonna save you. And then he's just like,
but he knows.
He knows.
He knows it'd be selfish just to save May and let everybody else around die.
At that point too, right before, he's deciding. Aunt May says that he knew.
Yeah, she asked Spider-Man to take off his mask.
And says, "I know. I want to see my grand nephew."
Dude, I think that was really got me was when he took off the mask, and that was. But personally, I think Peter Spider-Man has to maybe look into changing his voice or something, because everybody. Otto knew it was Peter behind the mask. Aunt May knew it was Peter behind the mask.
I don't think
you're not fooling anybody.
Otto would have known it if the suit thing hadn't happened.
Probably not, yeah.
That was when it was like, oh wow, it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Can we talk about one part that we totally skipped?
Yeah.
That I think we should talk about is the Scorpion scene. When Scorpion injects you with the hallucinations.
Yeah, that was...
What do you think about that?
It was interesting. It kind of was a lot more of the Peter and Otto kind of relationship aspect of it. Like, regret, feeling guilt over... Spider-Man basically felt guilty over Otto turning out the way he was, and that kind of... It was definitely an interesting moment, though. Would you...
Oh, I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
I thought, it's like, ooh, Spider-Man is tripping balls right now.
Yeah.
But, a lot of the images, were cool with, with all the scorpion fucking tentacle things.
The city's, covered in, a wave of poison, and, his Scorpion's, enlarged. You could kind of, mini... Not kind of mini boss fights with the...
Yeah, but it's just like it warped his mind and he's talking to Otto.
Yeah, he's poisoned. He has to run around the city trying to create an antidote to counter the poison that Scorpion injected him with.
That was such a weird part.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that was...
Yeah, it did a good job in help building the thing between Otto and Peter.
And it cuts 3 months after... After Aunt May's dead, after they show this little part at Aunt May's funeral, and then it jumps 3 months later.
And her gravestone's next to Ben's.
Yeah. And
Peter's in the cafe with MJ, and I think they're basically getting the relationship back to...
Yeah, well, he's like, oh, I'm crashing out Miles' place. And MJ's like, why don't you crash with me? Get in the bed.
And they kiss, and Peter and MJ kiss, and it's the credits. But you have 2 after credit scenes. The first being
was it Miles?
Miles, yeah. So like you see it during the main story, the spider bite Miles, and like I said, if you read in the comics, you know Miles is another Spider-Man. So Miles shows Peter that he has abilities to stick to walls, and Peter's like, oh, it's not that uncommon. And Peter jumps on the wall himself, basically revealing to Miles that he's Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's one thing. Yeah, maybe I should just wait, but I'm not really looking forward to the second game if there's going to be more of... I don't know.
You could do so many things with the second game without... I don't know. You could do Miles. They could go into like Spider-Verse territory, but there was no symbiote suit at all. It wasn't an unlockable suit. There's no mention of it. No Venom. Nothing like that. Imagine an entire story built around that.
Yeah.
It would be so
exactly. You could
cool.
do so much of the story. That would, like... And I just want, like, other stuff, minuscule stuff to take up time where it could be to somewhere else. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I know what you mean, because you don't like the stealth missions and all that junk.
Yeah. But, so the second scene was of Norman Osborn back in his penthouse, his secret laboratory, and he reveals that his son... Harry was not in Europe. In fact, he was here the whole time.
Oh, yeah, we already mentioned that.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
That's funny.
So yeah,
whoops.
Harry's not in Europe. He was in the laboratory the whole time.
No, I just wasn't like
cure for him.
Maybe I wasn't like attentive enough. But did they have any like Green Goblin like image or?
They might have had some of the bombs. Yeah, because when MJ walks in, I think she sees some. Bomb like those.
What was the thing?
Grenades, because she sees the grenades
at the end of during that cutscene. The end of it, did something like? Did they show something in the tube go like this? It almost like looked like like a symbiote. Yeah, which I thought was weird.
I don't know. I'm
just, that doesn't make sense.
All I know is 100% the Green Goblin in the sequel is gonna be the main bad guy, the main villain of the game. He's gonna be like the Doc Ock of the sequel of this game.
I think they should do Venom. I think they should do like.
I think they should do. Maybe have him be it, but I think they need to make Green Goblin the main villain of the next game after all they've had with Norman, kind of the whole build up and stuff.
Mm-hmm. It's gonna be different. Like, is it Harry gonna be the Goblin, or do you think Norman will be?
I don't know.
How is it like? Does he create some kind of new drug, pump it into the tube, and then Harry busts out and is a big Green Goblin guy?
It's a possibility.
Do it that way. Go more ultimate with it.
I think we should definitely make a video discussing what we think will be in the sequels or what we want in the sequel. But is there anything else you want to add to?
I guess maybe just like overall final impressions. Okay. I guess I'll go first.
Yeah.
I love this game. It was one of my favorite like Elseworld Spider-Man like stories. I thought they did a great job kind of reinventing a lot of the characters. This is probably next to Tom Holland like one of my favorite Peter Parkers. I just thought he was so believable and likable, and his relationship with Aunt May, and I liked that he had this kind of like side thing at Feast and he helped out. I liked that he was in his early 20s, but he was still fucking broke as shit. Like, he's still, like...
Maybe he wouldn't
I just liked it.
Like, maybe he wouldn't be broke if he didn't spend so much money on backpacks.
Yeah.
Motherfucker had, like, 50 backpacks, like, with one thing inside of it.
Backpacks.
Oh, I need to buy one backpack to fit one thing. No wonder he's broke.
If we're just talking, like... Obviously, like, we didn't really touch on just, like, you know, gameplay and kind of, like, the different mechanics that way. But strictly, you know, story-wise and everything, I really wasn't ever bored. It kept my attention. It was like a 3.5 hour long movie if you just paid attention to cut scenes and stuff. And I loved it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I hope Insomniac does a sequel.
Yeah. Well, it's got a great reception, so I think they'll definitely...
Yeah. Yeah, no, those are my kind of final impressions. I really, really enjoyed it. One of the best games I played this year.
What would you rate the... Not the game, the whole story overall? Because you have to put in a fact, too, also. It's not just cutscene story, because gameplay mechanics is part of the story, too.
So and this is probably like a testament to how good this is, but did you hear about how all the dialogue in the game was actually recorded twice? It was recorded once, just regular, and then a second time, and they called it like exertion or whatever. So if you're just kind of like standing still or walking normal, you hear the voice, but then as you start hustling or swinging, it turns into the other one.
Oh, like more like
but so every bit of dialogue is recorded twice, and it just as you move, it changes.
That's cool.
Yeah, I read all... Dude, I'm like, that is nuts. And I didn't even notice, but that's probably how good it is. Like, I'm just like... It was just so... Just smooth and... I don't know. I just think that's, like, incredible. Like, so much of this game was just so much love. You could tell so much love into the Spider-Man lore and just... I don't know. I just really, really liked it.
All right.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
So my final thoughts is I really enjoyed all the cutscenes overall and like the overall story between, you know, the whole, like the main storyline of like the Devil's Breath being released and Dr. Octavius mad at Norman and Spider-Man fighting the Sinister Six and whatnot. But a lot of the stuff leading up to the end of Act 2 where Otto becomes the main bad guy, I wasn't crazy about. Mr. Negative, I didn't feel was that strong in the game to warrant like 2 whole acts with him as the main guy. I mean, a lot of the gameplay was a little repetitive, but in a mash 'em up game, you have to expect that. It's going to be a lot of going through towers, fighting enemies, you know, getting to the end of the level. So that's, I mean, I'm not going to knock the game for that. But, overall, it was a good game. I mean,
I mean,
I liked it. I mean, there's some aspects of the story I didn't like. I didn't like I already said previously, the stealth parts. I didn't like some of the characters. The gameplay was a little repetitive, I thought. But all the cutscenes and overall story, I think, outweighed the negatives I had through the game, making it like an overall positive experience for me. So,
yeah, I couldn't really think of like things I disliked, like very minor. There were some the way Miles kind of got bit. That was a little tacked on. All right, whatever. But overall, like I really didn't have a lot of negatives. I could not put well, you know,
so I guess
life gets in the way, but I just like couldn't put the controller down.
I guess you could say you're not Mr. Negative.
No, I give Mr. Positive Review. Boom.
And I give a mild review.
Mild? That would be like
one thumbs up, one in the middle.
That's mild? That's
like well, it's a little more than mild, because this would be like middle, but it was a little better than middle. Overall, I think the rest of the game, outside the story, boosted the game up for me to like it even more because the whole open world aspect of it was, phenomenal. But yeah, so we'll probably drag this on way longer than we need to already.
Yeah,
so.
I don't even know how long we've been going.
Yeah, so.
But cool. So those are our Spider-Man.
Those are kind of our raw thoughts of the story. Just
Spider-Man PS4 kind of thoughts.
Yep.
Right.
Of the story, we didn't even touch on like half of the game, with like the side stuff, the city stuff, like with the whole,
Yeah. We didn't really get into any of that.
Which I didn't want to. I just wanted to talk about the story.
Yeah.
Like the.
I think we accomplished that. I think we went in depth
enough. Yeah.
Give you guys our opinions on Spider-Man PS4, and if you haven't already, definitely give it a go.
Yeah, it's definitely worth. If you need to, sell your Xbox and trade it in, buy a PS4.
Yeah, or just buy a PS4. There's so many exclusives for the PS4. There's no reason not. Yeah, I mean, for exclusives alone, get yourself a PS4. They're like $250 now.
Yeah.
You don't
God of War. You got Horizon Dawn. You got Spider-Man now.
You got the Tomb Raider games, Uncharted. Like they're just you got all the exclusives.
Yeah. And we're not even really Sony fanboys, so we're not trying to.
Yeah.
We're not trying to sell you, but they definitely have some good exclusive that's worth buying.
Sony's not sponsoring us right now or anything.
Believe it or not.
It's just raw, so raw thoughts.
All right.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for watching. Thwip.